Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Ryan Mee, who's the CEO of Fulcrum Metals, who are an exploration company but has since repositioned itself as a tailings processor, an evolution summed up by strapline turning waste into gold. In our conversation, Ryan shares how Fulcrum is seizing this opportunity not only to unlock value from historic mine waste, but also deliver real environmental and ESG benefits through remediation. We're going to explore the company's project in Canada, the opportunities and challenges for obviously operating there, its partnership with Extrakt and their unique processing technology, and where Ryan sees the future of tailings processing, and obviously whether it's a niche or mainstream part of the mining industry. And finally, we're going to touch on what milestones investors and industry watchers should be looking for as Fulcrum builds momentum in this exciting space. So with no further ado, let's welcome Ryan to the podcast. How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you, Rob. And it's been a while since we last spoke, so it's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, I think we recorded a podcast 18 to 24 months ago. And obviously a lot has changed since then, as we're obviously going to delve into. So why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, how you got into the industry, from when you graduated, how your career's developed to what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, firstly, Fulcrum are concentrated on tailings and reprocessing. We've obviously got a working relationship and partnership with Extrakt, using their technology. So essentially, this technology is cyanide free. We've had some excellent high recovery rates and quick leach times. So we're really buttoning down on optimizing that at tailings projects in Kirkland Lake to unlock, the treasures of tailings, which have, they've been sat there, in some cases for as long as 100 years. And it's because of a lack of innovation. So we want to change that, and we want to be at the forefront of that. When we last spoke, Fulcrum were exploration orientated. We're managing a number of exits from our exploration portfolio, which we can, reinvest into our tailings operations. Now, me as a person, I kind of got engaged with the industry as an investor. So I've been investing, probably 15 years or so now. Obviously, same as everybody else, you get some winners, you get some losers. And what I've been doing is using that knowledge to help build Fulcrum into a successful company. And that's ultimately led to us repositioning into this tailings market. I obtained an economics degree, what seems like many moons ago now. And, I think that really helps me in what we're doing at Fulcrum alongside my, investment career. I was pretty successful as an investor. And trying to wrap those skills up into Fulcrum and making a really good success of it. So I'm really excited about what we're doing, and it's what puts a spring in my step every morning, knowing the potential for Fulcrum and how we can innovate this space.
Yeah. Just going on your background, obviously you mentioned you obviously haven't gone down the traditional route of studying mine engineering, geology, but you've come in as an investor and then got into the industry that way. So completely different to 99% of the people in our industry. What advantages, I suppose, have you seen that you've got from entering the industry the way you have compared to others that have gone down that traditional route?
Well, I guess, I don't have that geological training, so I don't have a mindset that's already kind of ingrained within me. So I bring that entrepreneurial spirit to Fulcrum to try and be innovative, think about new ways of doing things. And, again, this is really, you know, symptomatic of what's going on at Fulcrum. And if I'd already had an ingrained persuasion in my outlook and application, then we wouldn't be looking at what we're doing right now, which would be a shame, to be honest.
And I suppose if we look, obviously, like I said, we spoke nearly 2 years ago, and back then you were more of an exploration company, and obviously, as I mentioned in the introduction, your position more as a tailings processor now. What drove you to move the company from being exploration to what it is now as more of a tailings processor? What was behind that shift?
Well, there's a number of things. I mean, the first one is, we want to get, into a production scenario. And I think it's just a very simple calculation that with exploration, there's a number of processes you need to go through. I think everyone's familiar with the Lassonde curve, through discovery, expanding that deposit and feasibility studies and permits, etc. And tailings, it's already mined material and it's sat at surface. So just from the initial concept that, we don't need to go and find this material, we don't need to dig down and find it. We was already, in an advanced situation in that we could literally walk onto the property and we can understand the properties of the asset a lot quicker. So it's a case of, can we find a technology which is going to help unlock this? And also, how do we scale the opportunity? So, this was really, how do we take what's, traditionally viewed as a boring, cash generative opportunity into something which is a little bit more aligned with, making those discoveries, those blue sky opportunities. And that's what we've really focused on over the last 18 months. And, we've put a pretty exciting model together to achieve that.
As I mentioned again in the introduction, your strapline is obviously turning waste into gold. Just wondered if you can just explain what that actually means in practice and why it's such an exciting opportunity that you're obviously going to pursue.
Yeah, well, it's waste by definition. It's discarded rejects from historic mine operations, but they didn't manage to recover, all of the minerals out of it. And that added to the fact that particularly the earlier operations, the early 1900s, the mine waste was simply dashed into the environment, into kind of natural enclosures. ESG was simply not a concept back in those days, and they've just been left unaddressed, in the intervening period. So, we've got an opportunity to go back, correct, those early misgivings in the industry, and we could go back, reprocess, and not just recover gold and the other, commodities held within the tailings, but also help clean up the areas. Tailings are really fine materials, which means, you might have some toxic materials left over, but also because it's so dense, it stops the vegetation from regrowing. So actually, just by going back and liberating these tailing sites, you're going to help bring the local area back towards its original state. So it's really exciting in that this is real ESG in practice. It's new innovative technologies, and it's mining. So you're kind of encompassing a wide aspect of, what I think today's modern investors looking for, and that is genuine environmental credentials, the ability to have near-term producing assets, and you don't know what you find in those tailings because they say it's gold tailings, but that's that's just because it came from a gold mine. Fact is, no one's ever tested those tailings for anything other than gold before.
Talking about obviously ESG, remediation, obviously tailings isn't just about economics, and it's more about, I suppose, environmental responsibility too. How important is the ESG angle to Fulcrum's strategy moving forward?
Well, it is important because this all, vectors down into the social license to operate. It's something that the industry, has been, historically had a fight on its hands against, in terms of its invasive practices. So, so to be able to come up with a concept which actually we're not creating any more practices which are detrimental to the environment, but actually will help restore the environment. It's I see it as a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest. And I think for me, that's what gives this an extra passion towards it, and that's actually from an environmental standpoint, you can actually make areas and local communities' lives a lot much better than they have been.
Looking at your current projects, what makes them technically and commercially exciting to you personally, and what keeps you up at night in developing these projects?
I think where we are in Kirkland Lake, there's one operating mine, Mikasa, and there's multiple, you're talking of over 40 different legacy sites in that kind of Kirkland Lake area stretching over to Larder Lake. So the size of the opportunity is clearly one that really excites me. And by being able to move at TechU's forward, you're talking of, around 10 extra tailing sites around the local vicinity to TechU. So the way I'm kind of viewing this is, we can create a hub and spoke operation to clean up on a regional scale. And to me, this isn't just about one project. It's about a movement. It's about tangible opportunity, as you say, not just from an economic, but from, a health, an environmental situation. So that puts a huge spring step into my motivation on this. And of course, there's many facets to this which are not easy to overcome, but we spent the last year and a half tackling those things, such as, getting to know the local communities, whether it's indigenous or the local townsfolk. And, we've really managed to garner substantial support with what we're doing. And, that's seen through one of the agreements which we managed to sign off earlier in the year with AAN, which is one of the First Nations groups in our work area. And, quite simply, people want to see this project happen, so we're going to make it happen.
Yeah. Obviously, operating in Canada comes with opportunity and complexity. How are you navigating, obviously, the permitting, obviously also First Nations agreement, and the wider geopolitical backdrop? Have there been any moments where your approach has had to change on the ground with obviously all those stakeholders and everything else that happens in developing a project?
I wouldn't say that our approach has changed. From the very outset, we've been engaging with the local communities. And like I say, we've had huge support with that. We engaged with, the mines department, the Ontario Mines Department from the offset, so they know what we're looking to do, what the ambition is. So we've had a fairly good line of sight in terms of permitting and requirements to get this project delivered. So really, it's just about making sure that we keep that engagement process going, and at the same time, we operationally deliver on what our investors need, and that is obviously advancement of the projects. And that's where we are right now. We've recently completed a financing to fund those operations, so we're entering a really exciting time for Fulcrum.
Moving on to your partnership with Extrakt, is obviously central to your tailing strategy. Just wondering if you can just walk us through how the collaboration works on site and why you chose them over other potential process partners.
Well, we chose Extrakt technology for a number of reasons. The first one, that it's cyanide free. We knew that from testing on other projects, they had high recovery rates. We knew that they had quick leach times, so that we knew that we had all of the factors we needed. Firstly, to be able to run the project, and secondly, to have a project which is going to be economically viable. So that's principally why we chose Extrakt. Personally, I've known the president of Extrakt going back nearly a decade now. So I've always been connecting with them to keep tabs on the advancement of the technology. So it wasn't just well, that seems like a good technology. Let's go after that one. It was, from a background of really good understanding. And essentially, Extrakt own the technology. Fulcrum have the tailings assets. So the idea is that we apply Extrakt's technology to our projects to make them, environmentally safe, economically attractive, and make money for shareholders, and produce a more stable, more equitable environment, for those that live in those regions. So it's essentially, we do the on-ground work that's needed. Extrakt do all the testing, the bench testing, and Extrakt have an alliance with Bechtel Engineering, one of the biggest mine services groups globally. And that alliance not only endorses the powerful nature of this technology and what it's capable of, but it also adds as an extra layer of protection, for us as a company. And Bechtel are, providing that really deep knowledge and experience in engineering to wrap processes around the technology, so this all works. So in essence, we've almost got like a turnkey solution here in terms of technology. The R&D behind that falls with Extrakt, the engineering side of things, which falls under Bechtel, and obviously we have the projects to leverage, to fantastic companies, IP and data. And we early this year we signed an exclusivity with Extrakt for Timmins and Kirkland Lake, two of the biggest gold camps and most productive gold camps in Canada. You're going to find tailings with the most historic production. So that's where we are right now. So we've got a huge upside, as we unlock tech use in terms of value and advance to production, and replicating this, throughout two really exciting regions in Canada.
What's actually unique about Extrakt's processing technology to probably obviously compared with other conventional tailing processing? Are you seeing any technical bottlenecks or potential surprises at all?
No, we haven't seen any surprises so far. Just to kind of outline what the advantages here are, one of our tailings projects, was subjected to your traditional cyanide based methods in terms of recoveries. I think it's 2008 or around that time. That's getting recovery rates of around 30%, around 48 hours. And the initial testing we've done with Extrakt, we're getting recovery rates of around 60% in as little as 3 hours. So you can see how disruptive this technology can be and how this can unlock, the mineral wealth in these tailings. So, it's so far so good, as they say. And, I just think we're really on the cusp of providing a breakthrough solution to an age-old problem in, a real new way. And yeah, I'm just like really excited for, the work that we're doing right now.
Yeah. Given Canada's supportive stance on obviously critical minerals, do you see Fulcrum's future as being purely focused in Canada, or are you open to other jurisdictions if the right project comes along?
Well, look, I think, Fulcrum has shown that they're open to opportunity. And I guess that falls back to, the how Fulcrum was put together and, the leadership at the moment. And that is we're highly entrepreneurial. Um, so essentially, if it makes sense, we'll have a look. But our main focus right now is at tech use in Kirkland Lake, unlocking, the full potential of tech use and that wider area in Kirkland Lake and those two massive gold camps in Canada.
Tailings reprocessing is obviously becoming more of a hot topic recently. Do you think this is a niche business, or could it become obviously more mainstream part of mining over the next decade?
Well, you're absolutely right. Tailings, it's always been niche. It's only really appealed to certain types of investors. Um, but what we're seeing I think, is a generational change in attitudes, in particular from governments. So, for example, in Ontario, we've seen the introduction of the new mineral recovery permit, which is designed to expedite the ability to, remove reprocessed tailings. And that's because there's a lot of tailings, there's a lot of locked up mineral wealth in there. There's going to be a lot of commodities in there that's really going to help, supercharge what everybody wants tomorrow, and that is, your high tech gadgets, with these critical minerals. And also, crucially, it's going to significantly contribute to a lower carbon society. We're not digging, we're not putting shafts in and going 300-400 meters or so underground. We're not blasting. This is already being processed. This is already an issue at surface. So we're simply reprocessing it and we're defining that opportunity right now. So this really opens up the box for a low carbon source of not just gold but critical minerals in a way that can bring environments back into society for general use. And that can feed into the new mines of tomorrow. And the government recognise this. The local communities recognise this. So I think for the first time, you're not seeing just a niche recognition that this opportunity exists. You're seeing it much higher up, in government offices, in the local communities. And ultimately, companies like Fulcrum are recognising that opportunity. They're putting both hands around that opportunity. And I think you're going to see a lot more companies turning to tailings, to access a lot of different commodities. There's a couple of groups in Timmins there with significant amount of tailings. They're using that as a way of, not just from an environmental standpoint, but as a way as a real part of the business that can help the exploration and development side in terms of new mines. So you're seeing this become a genuine side of mainstream, and I think over the next 12 months, this is going to be a story which really gains a lot of legs and attention. So we think we're kind of first movers, but we certainly won't be the last.
Yeah. Obviously, your background was being a private investor. I wonder if you can just comment on the market at the moment, what you're seeing, and maybe focusing on some of the commodities that you like to invest in. I just wondered if you can comment on what's happening in the markets at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've always positioned Fulcrum towards gold, over the last, what we listed in Feb 23. Came to market with gold assets for a very good reason, and that was we could see there was economic struggles going on. We're just coming out of COVID. There was a lot of money that's been printed. So there's always going to be a lot of headwinds when it comes to the general financial markets. It's taken a bit of time for that to bite, but we're definitely seeing that now. We've seen the gold price go from 2,400 this time last year to about 3,600 around that now, and that's really recognising the financial mess that the world's in, right? And that's not going to clear up anytime soon. And then you've got, allied to this, a real increase in demand for high-tech gadgets. So what you're going to see, even with EVs, the demand for, copper and zinc, just for the general infrastructure for the charging, of these gadgets and everyday kind of lifestyle use items. But you're also seeing on the other side is China also having a complete dominating position in terms of reprocessing, rare earths and critical minerals. And the West is starting to realise, what, we need to get a handle on this. We need to onshore these resources and these capacities so that actually it's not going to strangle our own growth as, in our own economies. So I think there's actually a general wide range that of scope of thought that, as long as you kind of stick to gold in terms of your kind of store of value, if you stick to, your bases of copper and zinc in terms of your kind of infrastructure, and of course your critical kind of speciality metals, which currently controlled by China, which the West want to try and wrestle that back. So, I think we're in for a real commodity super cycle. I think that's already started with gold. We might be a year or two into that. These kind of bull markets typically last for 10-year cycle. I think it could be much more this time. We're coming from a much more difficult position than we ever have before. So, it's I think it's a great time to be invested in most metals. So now it's about, can you select those players within the market that are going to give you like a unique entry into these areas, and provide genuine innovation, which can create a lot of value.
And lastly, what milestones should people look out for, obviously in the near future, as Fulcrum progresses with its strategy? So maybe over the next sort of 12 to 18 months.
Well, look, in the next 6 months, Fulcrum have started a major characterization program at TechUse. Up to this point so far, we've shown that there's gold in the property, in the tailings, as you would expect. We've identified potential critical minerals like gallium and tellurium, and also co-products of silver. We've done a high-level concept. We've got high recovery, 60%, quick leach times, 3 to 6 hours. We've got a high-level MPV, 33 million, based on the old gold price, much lower than where we are now. So what we're jumping into now is the characterization, and that's where we get into real detailed studies. So we're doing a comprehensive auger drilling program so that we can establish a modern day resource estimate of what's on site. We're doing a phase 3 testing program with Extrakt. So that's all designed about, optimizing those recovery rates, optimizing those leach times, having a look at, the cost benefits of this technology through being able to recover unspent water and reagents. So, and of course, there's other things alongside that. There's the environmental aspect of this, which we should be making a move on very shortly. So we are bringing this project together for that construction decision. So this is a major step in the advancement of TechUse towards production and Fulcrum as a company in terms of its concept and its ability to scale out. So we've got a huge 6 months ahead of us, really excited, a lot of really important work and milestones that are going on for the company. And as for the next 12 months, we want to have been able to have made that construction decision at TechUse, and we can look forward to what that production situation looks like. So we want to move quick, Rob.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, telling us about obviously Fulcrum Metals and you obviously the company pivoting away from exploration into gold processing. And if our audience wants to follow the story, wants to reach out to you if they've got any questions about obviously the processes, about the technology, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, the company's got an account on X, at Fulcrum Metals. We're on LinkedIn again at Fulcrum Metals. And our website is fulcrummetals.com. So we're very accessible. You'll find emails, etc., on all those, and of course, check out the RNS feed. Contact details will be on there. We're entering a very news-rich period of significant development. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled and watch the news flow.
Yeah, certainly. We'll include those details in our show notes for easy access, so our listeners can obviously reach out and follow the story. So, thank you again, Ryan, and hopefully you can come on next year and give us an update on how the project is developing.
No, thanks, Rob. I'd be delighted to come back in 12 months. Like I say, we've got a really, really exciting period ahead of us, and look forward to more significant updates for you then.
Yeah, all the best.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, appreciate your support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. We want to share these episodes among all of your colleagues, people that you know in the industry. Doesn't have to be just in your own countries. Please share this episode to others that you know in the industry, perhaps others that you've worked with in the past, people that you know in the industry that may be overseas. We just want to keep sharing these episodes, keep educating our mining industry. I think the mining industry is going to go through a big upturn now in all commodities, and we just need to keep everyone educated, keep thinking, looking at new ways of doing things, as Ryan's alluded to, looking at obviously tailings. So thank you again. Appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.